Hey girlfriend, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Lindsey Bush, an online mindset, fitness, and nutrition coach and the creator of the Empowered Method. Each week, we're going to be talking about all things mindset, fitness, and nutrition related, and probably a little bit of mom life too. So it's my hope to provide you with tangible tips that you can apply to your own health and wellness journey. So with that, let's dive in. Today, what I want to share with you are 4 things that I wish I would have known when I was starting my weight loss journey. So as you get started, it can be incredibly overwhelming and also a little bit frustrating. And I am literally that girl that has tried all the things to lose weight. And it took me a really long time to figure out what worked and in what combination. So these are my most common mistakes these are the mistakes that I was making, and also very common mistakes I see amongst my clients. So I wanted to share it with you today in hopes that if this is something that some of these things are things that you're currently doing, maybe hearing this today will give you a better strategy as you go along your journey. So let's dive in. First and foremost, I wish I would have focused a whole lot more on my protein intake versus worrying about how many carbs I was eating. So it's really easy to get sucked into the whole low carb keto mentality because it's a buzzword and it's really popular. And this is not to say that it is bad, but focusing on protein is going to give you much more bang for your buck. It helps keep you fuller longer. It is responsible for helping maintain and build lean muscle mass. The reason that is so important is because the more lean mass that we have on our bodies, the more calories we actually burn in a rested state. And studies show that women actually, your muscle mass decreases by 5 to 10% per decade if you are not working to actively build or maintain it. So that means over time, naturally, you would then burn less calories in a day if you aren't building muscle or maintaining what you already have, simply because of the aging process. So that's a huge reason why protein is so important, especially for women. It's important for men too, but we're not worried about that right now. So I really wish I would have had a much better understanding of the fact that yes, macros are important, and tracking them gave me a lot of freedom and flexibility around food in a way that meant, nothing was off limits. So I could essentially eat whatever I want as long as it fit my macro profile. But what I wish I would have understood is that it's a lot more important to focus on your overall protein intake versus worrying about what's happening with your fats and carbs. Yes, that's important, but one of the things that I often tell my clients and is very true just overall is calories are king and protein is queen. Meaning, in order to lose weight, you absolutely have to be in a caloric deficit. So calories are king. If you don't know where your calories should be, or if you're eating at maintenance or in a surplus, you're not going to be losing weight. And then protein is queen, meaning that's the next thing to get in check when working towards weight loss, fat loss related goals. Number 2, that brings me to number 2. All that cardio you're doing, it's not going to get you to your goals. So I was someone that spent so much time doing cardio. And listen, there's a place for it, and I still do it today. However, for most people, it is not going to get them to their goals. And many of us are incredibly busy and have very limited time available to work out. So we've got to make the most of it, right? So what's going to give you the biggest bang for your buck in terms of time spent in the gym? And that's strength training. The reason being, same reason I mentioned for protein. If you are not working to actively build or maintain the muscle mass you already have, it is going to naturally decrease as we age, meaning our metabolism becomes slower, because the more muscle mass you have, the higher your metabolic rate. The lower your muscle mass, the lower your metabolic rate. And so it's super important as we age to really hone in on that protein consumption and strength training. This is so frustrating for so many people because as women for so long, we've been told, eat less, move more, do a bunch of cardio, carbs are the devil. Well, no wonder we're all so freaking confused, right? So remember, protein, number 1. Number 2, swap some of those cardio days for strength training days. Another thing about cardio versus strength training is that our bodies are incredibly adept at adapting. So our bodies can adapt to a cardiovascular type of workout much quicker than it can to a strength training type workout. So you'll notice a lot of times when you're getting into cardio, you do that for a couple weeks and like all of a sudden you're noticing it's getting substantially easier. And over time, in order to get the same calorie burn that you would have gotten initially in that 30 minutes, like let's say you're doing a 30-minute training session, cardio training session, now you're gonna have to do 40. Now you're gonna have to do 50 as time goes on, because our bodies become very in tune with what's happening. They have adapted, and so the response to cardio is just not as good as it was when you first started. So that's something to take into account. When you're doing strength training, it's a whole different ballgame. So adapting to that type of stress on the body, it's a much slower process. So keep that in mind as you're working towards your weight loss goals, focusing on protein and strength training. So strength training, ideally you're doing that 3 to 5 times per week. So I am strength training typically 5 times per week, 2 upper body focus days, 2 lower body focus days, and usually a full body day. So that could be a good opportunity for you if you're somebody that's like a cardio bunny, if you're doing a whole lot of like Peloton or Orange Theory, things like that. While they are great and they have a place, and I see why so many people love them. Y'all know, if you know me, I absolutely love all things Peloton. I have, the bike and the tread and all the things. But just like there is a place for strength training, there's a place for that too. So just something to keep in mind. That's where I see a lot of women going wrong. They come into my program, I don't want to say the word wrong, but they are taking the approach that's not actually helping them move the needle as quickly as they could if they restructured their training program, essentially. So many times I'll have women that come into my program, they'll be like, well, I've been doing Orange Theory for so long, or I ride my Peloton every single day for 45 minutes a day or 60 minutes a day, and I'm still not seeing results. Well, a couple things are happening. One, you're no longer challenging your body the same way you were when you first started, right? Because your body has adapted to that cardio load. And number 2, 80% of our results are nutrition driven. And for many of us, some of us, me, that's kind of the downer, because the exercise for me is the easy part. The food part is a whole lot more difficult. Number 3 is that it's going to take a whole lot longer than you want it to. So often I have people enroll in my program or ask me about it, and they say, well, how much weight can I expect to lose? It's a 7-week program, and they want to lose, 30 pounds. And for most people, that is ill-advised for that short period of time. Ideally, you're focusing on losing ½ pound to 1 pound per week. That's a really safe range. Maximum 2 pounds, but I don't even really like to advise my clients to go that high. The reason being is that the quicker you lose the weight, the harder it is to maintain. Your body needs time to adjust. You also need to have the ability to remain compliant. And to lose weight rapidly, you're going to have to be in a steeper caloric deficit, which means your biofeedback is going to go haywire. Our hormones don't like it. And when I mean biofeedback, what I mean is, your mood, your libido, your sleep, things like your energy levels, they tend to plummet because you're not fueling your body as it needs to be. So if you can get to a place where you can understand that that this process is a journey, and even when you get to whatever your goal is, it's still a journey to maintain those results. So maintenance is not like this free-for-all magic fairyland. There are people that would arguably say that maintaining is actually harder than losing, because when you're losing, you have this like very specific goal that you're chasing down, and in maintenance, it just becomes a little bit of a different mindset. So if you can get to a place where you stop worrying so much about how long it's going to take and start focusing more on improving how you feel, improving your biofeedback, improving your habits and routines, and knowing that yes, you will make progress, but it might take a little bit longer than you would hope, maybe a lot of it longer, but you'll actually be able to sustain the results because you've developed better habits and routines, you've learned about nutrition, you now know how to fuel your body appropriately with foods that you enjoy, you know how to exercise in a way that's strategic, that maximizes your time, you're doing that, you're enjoying it. All of that is going to lead to an easier maintenance experience, because not only is it hard on our mindset to go like, high, low, like we do the yo-yo dieting, right? I've done it myself many times. It's so hard because when you gain the weight back, then you feel so bad about yourself and you go through this whole like shame spiral. And so getting to a place where, trying to avoid those big ups and downs, that's what we want to do. We really want to start to look at this from more of like a long range perspective versus what can I do? How fast can I lose this 20 pounds? The fact of the matter is you didn't gain it overnight. You're not going to lose it overnight. And it's better, no matter how you cut it, to approach it as slow and steady wins the race. So don't shoot the messenger. Number 4. Whatever you do to lose the weight, you're gonna have to continue to do to keep it off. So let that sink in for a minute. So let's say that you do Optavia, or you do putting your food in the containers, or you do, which is really popular right now, semaglutide injections. Once you stop doing those things, if you then revert back to what you were doing before, you will regain the weight over time. It's not going to happen overnight. So you got to take a really good hard look at what you're doing and say, is this something I can do for the long haul? Because I have had so many people come to me and they'll say, I got sucked into this, fad diet or this quick fix, Optavia, a cleanse, an injection, whatever. And I did it and it worked. And then I went back to what I was, it was done, right? I got to my goal and then I rebounded and I gained all the weight. And oftentimes and then some. So then not only have they spent all this time, effort, and money usually, but now they feel even worse because the weight is back on. And now they've realized, if I just would have gone about it from more of a lifestyle approach, I wouldn't be in this place now. And so if I can save you the time and the heartache of doing that, that is ultimately my goal, because I've done that. I've done that to myself on more than one occasion, and it is so frustrating. So keeping that in mind, and what I say, so for me, when I say like, what am I doing to keep the weight off that I have lost? This is an example, and this is what I teach to all my clients. You're gonna have to focus on protein consumption. So I tell my clients a minimum of 30% of your overall calories and macros coming from protein. You're gonna have to continue to focus on strength training, ideally, right? Because we wanna keep that muscle mass that we already have. You might be able to dial it back a little bit at maintenance if you want, but for me, I want to continue to build muscle. So that's where like your goals might change what you're doing a little bit. You're going to have to continue to focus on having an active lifestyle. So focusing on, for me, like 10,000 steps a day. You cannot, it's very difficult to, 1, lose weight, and 2, to maintain the loss if you do your daily workout and then you're sedentary for the rest of the day. And this is a topic for another episode, but when we look at our overall calorie burn in a day, only about 10 to 15% of the overall calorie burn comes from planned exercise. Most of it, a vast majority of it, comes from, our body doing what it does, like just sustaining life-sustaining functions, your basal metabolic rate, the calories you just burn to exist, and then also your non-exercise activity. So walking around, moving around, all the things throughout the day, respiration rates, how many times are you breathing in a minute, things like that. So for me, to keep myself in a place where I know I'm still moving around, I'm getting in that activity, 10,000 steps a day is a really good kind of benchmark for me. The other thing is people really lose sight of this, because when you are in a caloric deficit, your energy levels might dip slightly. This is another reason why it's so important not to go in like this steep deficit to lose the weight as fast as possible, because you're actually doing more harm than good. Because here's what happens. Your body's naturally like sending signals to your brain and saying like, sit instead of stand. Don't walk as much. You're tired, you're depleted. So you're naturally moving less, when really we need to be moving more. So it's like, what's that energy balance where we get it just right, where you're in a slight to moderate calorie deficit and you have the energy and you feel good, that your biofeedback is good, to a place where you want to move around and do the things. That's the ideal. That's the ideal goal. So protein, strength training, high level of daily activity. There was one other one I was going to say. Oh, making sure quality sleep. Sleep has to be a part of the equation. When we are deprived of sleep, people, like studies, there are many, many studies that show people consume on average an additional 350 calories when they don't get adequate sleep. Because our brain is going, it's like seek and destroy. I can literally feel my brain doing it when I know I'm sleep deprived. It's like searching for, how do I get energy? How do I get energy? How do I get energy? And my brain, it's like, just eat, you'll feel better. Eat, you'll feel better. And next time you're sleep deprived, you're gonna think about that. And so making sure that you're focusing on going to bed on time, and having your circadian rhythms in check is another one. So as you approach this, I hope that maybe you'll take some nuggets away from this and skip over some of these mistakes that I personally have made. It will save you so much time and frustration in the long run. So if you found this at all helpful, if anything stuck with you, please share this with a friend. I would appreciate it so very much, and I look forward to talking to you on the next one. Bye.